Today, I'm challenging you all of the control freakness that you're harboring. Yep, I know you've got one. I've got one. We've all got a control freak inside us. Getting to know her and figuring out how to calm her down can make a massive difference for you in your business.
Hey love, you're listening to the Mums in Biz Show and I'm Victoria. Every week I bring you the unvarnished version of what it means to be a mum running a brilliant business, what you need to be doing to get it to where you want it to be, and a healthy dose of how to get the heck out of your own way. Let's dive in.
Hey there, I'm Victoria and you're watching the Mums in Biz Show. So tell me, you want to know what comes with the territory when you enter into the mum zone? Needing to control things. Actually, I was a control freak and a perfectionist long before I had kids, and maybe you can relate to that a little bit. For me, in my career particularly, I was so particular and so professional and so determined to always be at the top, not for the sake of being at the top, but because I needed to know that I had done my absolute best, that no one could question whether I'd put my all into it or think that I didn't have what it took. For people to like me and value my work. I drove myself so hard to always achieve the things I was given to do. Go above and beyond, never leave anything to chance. Failure was simply not an option. And so I competed against myself. And if I'm going to be really honest, I competed with my peers too. I know you're not meant to admit that kind of stuff, but if you can't be honest with yourself, then who can you be honest with? But again, it was always coming from that place of being the best that I could be and finding a yardstick to measure myself against. I always overachieve, and I've been so proud of myself for that. But let's talk about how that impacts your life and what it does when you bring it into your entrepreneur world. Because there aren't too many professional mums out there that don't have some part of this control freakiness showing up for them. And I don't know if you picked up the thread in that story that I just told you, but most of that was coming from a place of fear. Fear of not delivering, fear of not adding value, fear of not measuring up, or being thought about negatively. I was constantly fighting against myself because I completely lacked confidence in myself and what I could do. So let's check in for a little second. Can you think of a time or part of your life or business where you're feeling some of this? How's that showing up for you? Even though it makes you push yourself harder, work better, deliver more, how do you feel when you're in that place? That's what we're talking about today. Because for me, when I was in the grips of that perfect mania, I was stressed and always pressuring myself to be perfect in meetings or to show up super prepared and be hyper vigilant. There was not much of the real me coming out, which had a really weird effect. People knew they could count on me and they expected me to do good work. But I really struggled to build a relationship with them because I was so focused on being professional and all over it all the time. So I worked long hours and I expected high quality from my teams too. Now, because my perfect mania extended to being a good team leader, they usually were getting a decent experience because I was just as focused on being a great leader, again, perception, but sometimes the stress broke through and the pressure I put on myself extended to my team as well. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm probably describing the worst parts of how I showed up in my career and selling myself short in this story. I am really good at what I do. And I can say that now because I've figured out how to relax into my expertise a little, build my confidence. But for many years, even though everyone else thought I was good at what I did, I never allowed myself to believe it. And I controlled the hell out of everything around me because of that. So when you control everything completely, or try to, because that puppy is destined for failure, you're setting yourself up to feel stressed and frustrated and feel like it's not going to plan and never good enough. And that comes through in your delivery. Even the most practiced and polished presenter, coach, business owner, insert label that fits you here, is going to crack around the edges when you're coming from a place of control. It means that no matter what it looks like on the outside, what it feels like on the inside is pretty pants. And the worst part is that you usually are missing opportunities to do amazing things that are right in front of you because you're so fixated on the plan. Just execute the steps, one step in front of each other, blinkers on, must stick to the plan. All the while, this amazing opportunity for improvement is waving at you just outside of your line of sight. Now, I've talked about this before on the show, the art of being open to the possibilities that are in front of you. And this is along a similar vein. But the way to do it is to learn how to focus only on what you can control and let the rest take care of itself. So what on earth do I mean by that? Well, we often try to control things that we have absolutely no control over whatsoever, and then let us feel awful when things don't go according to plan. Tell me what happens when you try to control your kids and what they do, say, react to, how they are. It usually goes pear-shaped, right? So let's break it down. I'm sure everybody has had a story like this. Asking for a friend. You're trying to get out of the door with your 5-year-old to get to school on time. Except she's tired because your 2-year-old had another bad night last night, which involved hours of listening to whinging about not being in bed. Scratch that. You are all tired. So your 5-year-old is laying all over the place, not eating breakfast, fighting you on getting dressed and dragging her feet. She's getting more and more cranky as she goes. You, meanwhile, are getting stressed and feeling frustrated, maybe even starting to get angry. Doesn't she know that we do this every day? Doesn't she know that I'm going to be late for work? Why can't she just do what I need her to do? Side note, nope, she really doesn't know any of those things, and she doesn't care. So you try to control more, cajoling, threatening, using a raised voice, and finally she has a complete meltdown in front of the basin because you're trying to brush her hair while she does her teeth and you hit a knot. Well, if you weren't late before, now you're really going to be late. And the only way to fix where that's at right now is to abandon all pretense of staying on schedule and sit down in the middle of the floor with her in your lap and cuddle her, if she'll let you touch her, until she calms down, gets it off her chest, and then happily, oddly, resumes her morning routine. So compare that to the mornings where you just think, screw it, we're just going to take it easy and not stress if things aren't perfect, and the kids respond to your lack of stress. They work with you. You get out the door 10 minutes early because no one was looking at the clock. Or the mornings where you need to be someone early, maybe an important meeting, and because you know you can't sort the kids in time, you make other arrangements so that you just have to worry about getting yourself ready and out the door. Those last two examples are the ones that completely embody what we're talking about today. See, the only thing that you can control is you. Your thoughts, yes, you can actually control those too. Your actions, your reactions, and your choices in every situation that you're in. We spend most of our lives thinking that we can control everything, when in actual fact, you control very little about your environment. The problem with this, though, is that we let the outcome of something not going our way, even though we're trying to control it, impact how we feel about the result or the outcome of the situation. But there is always a choice. Always. Let me say, that bears repeating. You always have a choice. It may not be an easy choice. It may involve choosing acceptance. It may involve releasing beliefs or expectations. And it may be one of the hardest choices you've ever made, or the easiest. But even by not taking action in a situation where you're not happy, you're choosing to accept it. Let's say that you are with a group of people and they vote to go to a restaurant that you really don't like, and you get shirty about it and you stay, but you spend the whole night ruminating about how they don't listen to you and you never get what you want and you really don't like the food. Well, friend, you chose to stay. If you were really that unhappy, you could have chosen to go home, but you stayed for a reason, and then you chose to take your perspective, mood, and reactions with you. You could have chosen to have a different reaction. You could have chosen to speak up and ask them to choose somewhere different. There's so many different options in that situation. And when we accept that we can only control ourselves and our own reactions, emotions, perspectives, situations, and we let the rest take care of itself, you're actually completely empowering yourself to influence the results that you'll get. It sounds completely backwards, but let me bring this back to a business example for you for a second. Think about a launch activity that you've done that didn't go as planned and break it down a bit. You set yourself a goal. Whether it was one you could actually achieve or not is a whole nother episode. Setting goals you can actually believe are possible is really, really important. But anywho, you've set a goal and you've mapped out what you think is needed to achieve that goal. But baked into those actions are some assumptions about how other people are going to behave. Their purchasing behavior, the way they're going to react to and interact with your marketing content, perhaps how a contractor is going to behave or deliver on something, maybe how a partner is going to show up, definitely how life is going to cooperate perfectly with you. And then we attach a big old meaning to whether we reach the goal or not. You know the kind I'm talking about. When I reach that goal, I will be successful. I will be able to do the things I want to do. When I reach that goal, I will be validated, or I will prove to someone that I have what it takes. I'll prove to myself that I have what it takes. And then something happens that is completely out of your control that impacts upon your ability to achieve that goal. And you think that means something about you. And even worse, you become a victim where the world is conspiring against you. And how are you ever meant to grow and succeed? And maybe the universe is trying to give us a sign. It's not trying to give you a sign, that is, except maybe that you need to learn something, like stop trying to control all the things that you can't control. What if, when those things derailed our perfectly laid out plan, we chose our reaction and switched up our thinking to think outside the box a little? What if we embraced something that happened completely unexpectedly and turned it into another way our audience could relate better to us? What if you ditched the meaning that you attached to the result that you wanted, embraced and celebrated the results that you got, and learnt the lessons that you needed to learn? So how can you do that? I know it's not easy and it takes a massive shift in mindset, but Rome wasn't built in a day, or so they say. What if you could start making shifts in how you're reacting to things, showing up a little bit differently each day, stopping yourself in a reaction to something, or taking a deep breath before you say something you don't really feel that good about? Do you think that you could change the way you're showing up with your team a little bit maybe? Or instead of assuming that they're not delivering, assume that you haven't explained something well enough and put a little more effort into making sure they're supported. This is massive and pays off hugely in the long run in terms of team engagement and activity. Maybe you need to practice letting in a little chaos to get used to that sensation of not being in control of everything all the time. Wait, that's a little bit outrageous. Do that one with care. If you're a diehard control freak, I don't want any of you, needing a health warning with my advice here. But you get the idea. Everything that's worth learning starts with us, with our mindset and how we're thinking and the actions that we're taking in response to each situation. When I'm working with my students, one of the things that we focus on most is what can you do differently in this situation to influence a different outcome? It's always about what you can do differently, think differently, or say differently. It's all in how you show up.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. If you enjoy listening to the Mums in Biz show, I would love for you to leave us a review on iTunes and be sure to post a snap of you enjoying the show on Instagram and tag me at nicole.tuerick. You can also join in the conversation with me in the Mums in Biz tribe on Facebook. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Mums in Biz Show.